going to call our regular meeting to order. Please silence your phones. All 7 trustees present for our regular meeting. Before we go into the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to call for a moment of silence. The tragedy at Santa Fe High School last week reminds us all of the importance of safety and security in schools. We want to assure our families that our district and schools have an updated school response protocol that has been created and reviewed in collaboration with the San Marcos Police Department. The safety of our students and staff remains our highest priority, and the best vigilance is communicating with one another and our schools. I would like to ask tonight's audience to join the Board of Trustees in a moment of silence to honor the memory of the victims of the Santa Fe High School shooting. Can I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'm going to ask the Halsey children and the McLaughlin children to come up to the podium to lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good job. At this time, we're going to ask Ms. Georgianne Logue to help us with the statement of oath of office for our 2 at-large newly elected trustees. You can do Ann? Okay.
CISD Board of Trustees at Large
of the State of Texas,
of the State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability preserve,
and will to the best of my ability preserve,
protect, and defend the Constitution
protect, and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States and of this state.
United States and the states of Omega.
Congratulations to both of our new trustees that have been re-elected, to Ms. Halsey and to Mr. McLaughlin. One more time. Mr. Cardona is not here to give us a superintendent's report. Mr. Fernandez will be doing the report today.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, San Marcos CISD community. We have a lot to be proud of, especially tonight. We'd like to begin with the announcement of our valedictorian and our salutatorian. We'll begin with our salutatorian. Please help me welcome Ms. Jordan Gomez. So Board of Trustees, if you can join Jordan up front. So Jordan is the daughter of Rudy and Lisa Gomez, which they can join us up front as well. She attended De Zabala and Hernandez Elementary Schools, Miller Middle School. She's involved in visual arts, ceramics. She plans to attend Texas Lutheran University, go Bulldogs, in the fall with a major in applied physics, which is a pre-engineering program, and a minor in ceramics. Congratulations to Ms. Jordan Gomez. Now, please help me introduce our valedictorian, Miss Hannah Davis. Hannah is the daughter of Virginia Miller and Kimberly Davis. She attended Bowie and Hernandez for elementary and Miller Middle School. I am involved in band, NHS, HOSA, Leo Club, FBLA. She plans to major in nutrition at Texas Tech University and plans to attend medical school to become a physician. Congratulations to Ms. Hannah Davis. One more round of applause for Jordan and Hannah. Next, we would like to introduce our San Marcos High School softball team. So our San Marcos High School softball team were the 14 6A district champions. And ladies, once I call your name, if you can raise your hand. Heaven E. Garcia, honorable mention, all district. Isa Gonzalez, academic all district, Team Rattler Spirit Award. Andrea Garcia, first team all district, academic all district. Criselda Vicendo, academic all district. Gianna Moreno, Team Hustle Award and wrestling district champion. Avery Jones, academic all district, academic MVP award. Sierra Bosquez, first team all-district, Central Texas Senior All-Star. Kaylee Cavazos, first team all-district, offensive MVP. Sydney Salazar, second team all-district, defensive MVP. Ariana Alonso, first team all-district, academic all-district, Central Texas Senior All-Star, Team Rattler Pride Award, and signed with Odessa College. Michaela Cepeda, honorable mention, all-district. Layla Diaz, area qualifier, track relay team. Melanie Castillo, district MVP, first team all-district, academic all-district, Fellowship of Christian Athletes All-Star, Central Texas Senior All-Star, Team MVP Award, Taffy President, and signed with Shriner College Softball. I gotta take a deep breath after that one. Jessica Valdez, top culinary student. Julissa Venegas, honorable mention, all district. Asenia Flores, academic all district. Gracie Martinez, second team all district, academic all district. Courtney Matthews, academic all district. Caroline Cortez, academic all district. Manager Skyla Alvarez and Jaylyn Torres. Student trainer Jimena Campos. And coaches Ashley Wright and Dale Stoffenheifer. I probably got that wrong. Head coach, district coach of the year for 14-6A is Coach Kathy Stoughton. Let's take one big group photo now. One more round of applause for our district camp. Congratulations. I should have just said Coach Stoney. I should have just stuck with that.
That's what everybody knows me as.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce our San Marcos High School VIII students. Please help me welcome Jordan Gomez, Elise Persuea, Isabella de la Iglesia. They're going to, perfect. It's okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about VIII. So more than 3,400 people attended the Texas State Visual Arts Scholastic event at San Marcos High School on Saturday, April 28th. The event is a UIL equivalent competition for visual arts in Texas, sponsored by the Texas Art Education Association. While San Marcos High School hosts the Region 13 South Base meet this year, this is our first time hosting the state event. Visitors from all over Texas were welcomed by Superintendent Michael Cardona and the JROTC here at San Marcos High School. We would like to recognize 7 San Marcos High School students with 8 artworks who qualified for the state at the regional meet on March 3rd. They earned 7 all-state ratings, 1 all-area rating, 2 gold seals, the best of the best. Only 150 gold seals are chosen from 2,300 state qualifiers. These qualifiers are chosen from 35,000 entries representing the 20 ESC regions across Texas. So Jordan Gomez, Elise Persuea, Pearson, Isabella de Iglesias, Emily Holchek, Luis Rubio, Bella Smith, and Damian Engelhart. We would also like to recognize San Marcos High School sophomore Eli Simmons, whose artwork was accepted into the State Youth Art Month Capital Exhibit 2018, which is also sponsored by TAEA. And we also like to recognize the San Marcos High School art teachers who are joining us this evening. All right, one more big round of applause. I think we should start our own museum here at the high school with some of those art pieces, right? Or visit the Price Center, where a lot of our artwork is displayed as well. Next, we would like to introduce our San Marcos High School Choir Department. So the San Marcos High School Choir Department participated in the UIL Concert and Sight Reading Competition in San Antonio on April 17th and 18th. Our choirs all received amazing results. The Varsity Mixed Choir, the Varsity Bass Choir, and the Varsity Treble Choir all received sweepstakes, superior scores across the board. Let's give a round of applause for that. Our Junior Varsity Treble Choir received superior scores of all ones on their stage portion and excellent scores of 2-2-1 on the sight reading portion of the competition. The judges all commented on the impressive level of professionalism, musicality, and passion our students displayed for their craft. Congratulations to our San Marcos High School Choir Department. Next, help me introduce our San Marcos High School Future Business Leaders in America, who we have a few students who qualified for our national competition. So national qualifiers in entrepreneurship is Devion Williams. If you wave your hand, there we go. Hannah Davis and J.D. Brown. Our national qualifier in word processing was Miss Elena Gill, who is actually working tonight. So she's also the Area 3 Vice President, and then this is Miss Matlock, the representative for FBLA. So let's give one round of applause for Miss Matlock. So national qualifiers, let's give them a round of applause. Our next recognition is for 3 Gear Up students from the 7th grade at Goodnight Middle School. Please help me welcome Rodrigo Cruz, Stephen Loy, and Gael Martinez Alvarado. And Ms. Mossman will be passing out the certificates. So congratulations to our Gear Up 7th grade students from Goodnight Middle School who were recognized last week to join the Duke University Talent Identification Program prestigious 7th grade talent search. The state ceremony is held in San Antonio at Trinity University. These students were invited to take either the ACT or the SAT this year because they scored at or above the 95 percentile on their STAR scores in either reading, math, or both. These 3 gentlemen took the ACT and qualified to receive state recognition from Duke University's Talent Identification Program. We are so proud of them. Congratulations to these students and their families. Congratulations. So Stephen, if you can stay up there, Stephen. So Stephen is a Gear Up 7th grade student who has been selected as a national semi-finalist for the Jack Kent Cook Young Scholars Program. The Young Scholars Program is a national scholarship opportunity for 7th graders matching certain criteria. The foundation selects only 50 young scholars per year from all across the United States. Selection criteria focuses on academic achievement, persistence, leadership, and service to others. The application review process includes analysis of grades, test scores, student and parent writing, recommendations from teachers, and family financial need. We are crossing our fingers for Stephen, as he will find out if he is one of the 50 finalists and will be notified during the fall of his 8th grade year. Congratulations, Stephen, and the Loy family on this wonderful accomplishment. Our final recognition of the night. If you can please help me welcome the students who attended the Boston trip from the San Marcos AVID program. These 10 San Marcos High School AVID students earned their spot on a trip to visit Harvard and the great city of Boston. Students earned points for grades, timeliness to class, GPA, an essay they wrote for the actual Harvard application, and a presentation in front of a panel made up of AVID site team. It was very close and came down to tenths of a point. This experience was eye-opening in the sense that it made students realize that they cannot close their minds to opportunities in the world just because they think something is unattainable. Our gratitude is wild for this experience. And then this is the message from Crystal Kelly, their AVID teacher. Thank you for asking me if we wanted to show AVID students college beyond our backyard. It made a fantastic difference, not just in their lives, but in our AVID community. 2 students from each grade and 4 seniors were awarded this wonderful opportunity. Nicole Rivera, Johnny Morales, Juliana Salcedo, Jackson Showing, Alexa Avalos, E.C. Ramirez, Stefano Grandinetti, Esenia Castro, Juan Garcia, and Esmeralda Salcedo. And then the AVID teachers and Ms. Fowler, if we can recognize you as well, join us up front. So AVID students, if you'd like to take a seat, but we have a special treat for our Board of Trustees. So we have a video for you, but we don't want to make you stand the whole time. So if you take a seat, our AVID students wanted to say thank you in a special way, so they made this video for tonight's meeting. So if we can get the lights in the back.
Going into Harvard, that just helped me realize that, my story will help me achieve many things. And so I am thankful that I got the opportunity to go and to realize that I myself am missing something. I am missing more opportunities that I should see.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity, given that it taught me so much about just life in general and what I can expect for college next year. Above all, the most important lesson I got from the trip was what I want to do with my life after high school. Visiting those colleges, learning about the students, learning about a college that I thought was so out of reach for so many people. It really taught me that we have a misconception of what college actually is. I used to think that if you want a really good education, if you want a nice job in the future, you need to go to the best college ever. But even if that's not possible, let's say you can't go to an Ivy League school, it really doesn't matter. What matters is what you want to get out of that college.
Right, being able to go, I was able to experience new things, and just being able to see Harvard and to meet people and just experience the surroundings, it really made a difference. Now, I used to have it up to here, a high standard, but now I realize that I can have an opportunity as long as I try, and I really appreciate that.
The experience at Harvard was definitely impacted me in the sense that I got a feel for not only what it feels to be on a college campus, but what it feels to be on a very competitive college campus. And I think it really opened my eyes up to who I have to be and what I have to do to get in there. It's not just about, oh, you have good grades. It's about what makes you different from everyone else, because everyone else applying there has the perfect grades and the perfect SAT scores and all of that. Some takeaways I got from this trip are that I need to find what makes me different from others and what's my special characteristic.
The biggest thing of the Harvard trip that stayed with me is that just because I'm first generation does not mean that I can't do an Ivy League, and that an Ivy League college is not impossible if I just try. And that life goes on outside of Texas, that there's a whole other world out there.
It was a very enlightening experience. It taught me that it doesn't really matter where you come from, as long as you have hard work and dedication, you can do whatever you want, and that's the path to success. And I want to thank everyone who let me do this, because it gave me so much confidence. My AVIC experience has been better than I thought it would be. I didn't know that it was just gonna help me be a better person. I thought it was just gonna help me be a better student in school, help me pass my class instead of help me be more confident and more driven and being a forward thinker.
When I first started Avid, it was really hard for me to keep up with everything. But once things started flowing, I guess it went way smoother than I expected. Harvard was fun, more than fun actually. It opened up more options for me instead of just going somewhere to Austin or San Antonio. Avid has definitely helped me throughout this year, helped me get organized, helped me view different colleges, not even just Harvard, other colleges.
Since I got back from the trip, every day I wake up wanting to go back. It was an experience that was unforgettable to me. The people, the places, it was an experience that opened my eyes and my mind. So, things weren't going as planned as I wanted it to go. So, this opportunity really helped me cope. And I was like, oh, finding something good in my life happened. And it made me a new outlook, made me more optimistic. Since the trip, I want to go back and I want to travel more. I want to not be secluded in San Marcos or Texas. I want to meet new people. Going to Harvard really opened my dreams. Maybe I can go to a better school and get a better education. And it just gave me a new confidence in myself. And it made me bond more with my AVID group. I haven't really been close to many of them, and this trip really made me open up to them and just talk to them. And we had good laughs together a lot, and it just made me trust other people, and I enjoyed that.
MIT was the best college that I could ever think of getting in, because it's everything technology and science-based that I would love to get into. Just wanted to say thank you for this. Thank you for this amazing experience. I'm not going to forget it at all. Miss Kelly and AVID as a program has helped me through getting into RTS. Kelly helped me sign the papers and gave me a good word into getting to RTS, which is going to help me go visit more colleges in the future other than what AVID is taking me to. It has given me more and more opportunities, and I am so glad I found this program. Without it, I think I'd honestly be a mess without it.
Thank you, Board of Trustees.
Next item is our closed session is authorized by Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. I'd like to ask the board if they would like to add number 13 to move it so that we won't go into executive session twice. Can I?
Yeah, Madam President, I'll request that we move item number 13 into executive session at this time as well.
So consultation with legal counsel regarding Bonham pre-K damages and issues related thereto, and discussion regarding approval of non-administrative professional personnel contract renewals for the 2018-2019 school year. Go to executive session.
What item is this, though?
6. Ready for a motion?
Madam President, thank you. I'm going to move that we approve the Bonham Pre-K Facility Drainage Improvement Plan as presented and submitted by Civilitude as discussion executive session.
All in favor?
I will second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Halsey seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Another motion for the personnel? Ms. Hanson?
I move that the board approve the recommended 2018-19 teacher-related contract renewals.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arredondo seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Okay. You're now ready for public forum.
Yeah.
Make this. In our public forum, we remind people that you will be timed to 3 minutes. You will be limited to 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Roland Saucedo. Be speaking on naming of new school.
It might be forced.
Roland Salcedo, 211 Ebony. Good evening, Madam President and esteemed trustees. I'm here today to let y'all know that I met with the widow Zulema Cuevas and the Thomas Cuevas Jr. family 2 weeks ago. It's unfortunate she's not able to be here today. She is recovering from pneumonia. Her daughter, Lisa Cuevas Garza, is right now attending with her, so that's why she's not here either. But there are a few members of the Cuevas family. If y'all please stand. And the supporters that to let y'all know that the Thomas Cuevas Jr. family supports, respects, and the decision that was given by the naming committee, the 3 names that were submitted to the board, and humbly ask that y'all follow y'all's board policy that y'all reviewed and revised prior to charging the naming committee with that. However, if y'all feel compelled to address the notable support for the Thomas Cuevas Jr. Naming, perhaps y'all might consider the cafeteria, which would seem more appropriate because that is what his legacy is in providing fruits and vegetables to the needy. But again, like I said, we would like to ask that y'all abide by y'all's policy and choose from one of the 3 names that were submitted by the naming committee. Thank you so much for y'all's time.
Thanks, Willie.
Thank you. Our second speaker, Dan Lyon, topic, trustee misconduct.
Can we just pass them along?
Thank you. Dan Lyon from San Marcos. What I'm about to say brings me no pleasure, but it is something that must be said, and no one else would say it. A few months ago, Ms. Halsey viciously attacked Ms. Naomi Narvaez and said something to the effect that she was unfit to serve on the SHAC board. Let me make it clear, Ms. Narvaez did not ask me to speak tonight. She is not the subject of this talk. The subject of this speech is whether or not Ms. Halsey is fit to be on the school board. Until recently, Ms. Halsey had a picture of herself on her Facebook page wearing a T-shirt which had the words, I quote, "My Marxist feminist dialectic brings all the boys to the yard," unquote. I Googled Marxist dialectic. Under Marxist dialectic, what is Marxist dialectical materialism? Sometimes abbreviated DIAMAT. It is a philosophy of science and nature based on the writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and developed in Europe. It was codified and popularized in textbooks which were required reading in the Soviet Union, as well as some Eastern European countries. In short, it is Marx's version of Hegel's dialectic of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Probably more than any single individual, Karl Marx was the spiritual father of modern communism. Okay, I Googled communism, the leading cause of ideological death in the 20th century. All right, according to Stéphane Courtois, the Black Book of Communism, communism is responsible for 100 million deaths, a number total that far exceeds Nazism, which left 16 million dead, and it eclipses the 20th century death tolls of lung cancer, diabetes, and homicides. Some lay Marxists have described the waves of killing that followed communist revolutions as aberrations. In fact, these deaths are systematic outputs of successful communist revolutions, prescribed solutions to the inequities of capitalism, and entrenched beliefs and practices. For this reason, communist revolutions have been followed by unprecedented killing. Where is the humor in that? Is Ms. Halsey ignorant of what her T-shirt means, or does she really believe in Marxism? Ms. Halsey has a master's degree in fine arts from New York University and a Bachelor of Arts from Macalester College. In my opinion, she is anything but ignorant. Does she have Marxist leanings? When asked by the League of Women Voters how the SMCISD would fare under the new rating system, she said, rather than measuring student achievement, it measures districts with the most resources against those with the least. In other words, it is all about class envy for Ms. Halsey. The rich versus poor. If you Google schooldigger.com, you will notice that some of the highest performing schools are in the Rio Grande
Excuse me,
Valley.
Mr. Lyon, the time's up.
All right, thank you very
So
much.
sorry.
Hardly rich school districts. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Kathy Avila, naming of elementary school.
Good evening, school board members. I want to thank the nominating committee for their efforts in reviewing the nominations and making their recommendations. And thanks to the school board for allowing the public to submit these nominations. All three persons recommended by the nominating committee were valuable members of the San Marcos community, involved in the school districts as educators, and exhibited good family values. And I want to emphasize that I support all three nominations. Naming the school after any one of the nominees would be representative of San Marcos Independent School District's core commitments. Each of you received an information packet last month on each of these nominees. I am here to add information to that packet with regards to Dr. Carlos G. Rodriguez. For those of you who don't know Dr. Carlos G. Rodriguez, just look at the bilingual teachers in our school district and those bilingual teachers who have already retired. Dr. Rodriguez was the bilingual director at Southwest Texas State, Southwest Texas State University, now Texas State, and was heavily involved with teaching, mentoring, and assisting bilingual teachers in reaching their potential of education regarding the Spanish-speaking students of our school district. As an example, Dr. Rodriguez mentored Principal Rosemary Garza of Hernandez Elementary. Dr. Rodriguez was born and raised in San Marcos and attended the San Marcos schools. He was in the first graduating class for Southwest Texas's ROTC program. He served his country in the United States Air Force and retired from the Air National Guard as a colonel. While a professor at Southwest Texas State, he recognized the need for bilingual teachers and submitted a grant to the federal government, and Southwest Texas was awarded $1 million in 1972. This grant allowed for 30 students to go through the bilingual program for free. Civically, Dr. Rodriguez served in the Rotary Club, was on the Central Texas Medical Center Board, was in the Knights of the Columbus, and helped started the bilingual education student organization known as BESO at Southwest Texas State, which is still active today. He eventually retired from Southwest Texas State. When I went to school here in San Marcos, there were only 3 elementary schools: Bowie, Crockett, and Travis. We now have the opportunity to name the school after someone who represents San Marcos, turn the page, value for education for all students. And by the way, Dr. Carlos G. Rodriguez is my father. Thank you.
Thank you. Fourth speaker, James Bryant Jr., postponement of selecting name for elementary school.
Thank you. To the San Marcos Consolidated Independent School District, my name is James Bryan Jr., and I'm here to petition you for postponement of selection of a name for the new elementary school. I would like for you to please consider Ms. Catherine Hardiman. This lady was a teacher at the Center Point School. Later, she came to San Marcos and organized her own school that was very much inclusive. What is of immense import, it was done at a time when segregation was the law, but yet she persevered. Ms. Hardiman exhibited a tenacity of purpose, and I, again, demonstrated a tenacity of purpose. She always demonstrated a moral compass and an unbelievable in service to our country, belief in God. She provided the impetus for many veterans of this community who were Black and served very admirably in the United States Navy. During these times, if you can imagine, doors were closed to this segment of society. In the Dunbar area, they were never given up-to-date materials, books. Opportunities were resoundingly closed to this cohort of individuals. But yet, Ms. Hardiman persevered. That whole stellar is unbelievable now. We cannot fathom being killed to sit at a lunch counter or having to go into the back door of everything. But yet, because of that tenacity of purpose, under those circumstances, this woman persevered. I had the unique pleasure of working with her, and I always admired her for her elegance. I don't know if anyone here remembers the old Hayes Memorial Hospital, but I was a charge nurse there, a registered nurse. Maybe some people perseverate on first and whatever. I've had my share of them. But I admire this lady. I did not know of her history. I did not know of the Dunbar area. That was a productive area. And in spite of her providing the impetus for these veterans, the athletes who could not play basketball.
Time's up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Consider approval of name for a new elementary school. Ms. Hanson.
I want to thank, and I'm sure, did you want to thank the committee first?
Yes, we'd like to thank the naming committee for giving us a recommendation of those 3 names. They're all educators. They're well-respected people in the community. And like someone said, any one of the names would be a wonderful name for the new elementary school.
I agree with that, and I'd like to move that we name our new elementary school after Soyla Rodriguez.
Do I hear, are you making a motion?
Yes,
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McLaughlin seconds. All in favor?
We have
With
discussion?
Oh, any discussion? I'm sorry. We're just going to go ahead and vote. Any discussion? Discussion? We're ready for the vote? All in favor? 2, 3, 4. 4?
5.
You're going to go 5? I'll go with the majority then.
6.
6?
Call the vote again then?
7? Oh, let's call the vote again. 1, 2, 3. All in favor? 7. The new name will be Soyla Rodriguez Elementary. Did we have someone here from that family? Oh, everybody voted?
Yeah.
We went 7-0.
I-
Recall the vote.
I have it.
I think, yeah. Ms. Rodriguez?
Board, I want to express our thanks on behalf of the Rodriguez and Cavazos family. I really wish that somehow or another all the names could have been combined for this school in some way. But I realize that Rodriguez Rodriguez School would be probably a mouthful for elementary students. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't expect this. I just want to thank you on behalf of our whole family. I know that my mom would have been smiling at these kids that had been introduced earlier, especially those kids that went to Harvard to visit. She was very dedicated to preparing kids to go to anything they wanted to do after school, but most especially college. And so she would have been very proud of those students, and I know she would have been beaming with pride and going back the next day to school to prepare more students for that. I hope that possibly that some components of this new school could be named after my Uncle Carlos, like the library, or other components, you know, for my Aunt Belia Cavazos. And I can't wait to start volunteering there. So,
Can you state your name for the
thank you
record?
very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Can you state your name for the record?
I'm sorry?
State your name.
for the record.
Linda, initial A, Rodriguez.
Ms. Viapando?
I would like to ask my colleagues to reconsider the motion. I was going to make the motion to name the elementary school Rodriguez Elementary in honor of all 3 of our nominations from the committee, because like Ms. Avila so eloquently spoke about her dad, and I know some others were very favorable for Ms. Belia Cavazos, who was a counselor at our schools. And so to name just one, I mean, let's name all 3. Just call it Rodriguez Elementary in honor of our 3 nominees, because they were all very worthy, all educators. And I personally, when I heard the recommendation, because I knew the family well, and I was wondering which one would I select. And so I just Ms. Hanson beat me to the punch, but that was going to be my motion. And I would ask the colleagues here to reconsider and just name it in honor of all 3.
Procedurally, I don't know how you do that, madam, but I would certainly be in favor of it.
You would be in favor of it?
My preference would be to name the library after one, and maybe the cafeteria, I don't know, whatever parts of the school after the other two, because it was a hard choice. I did work with your mom some at Lamar, and
Also name the school.
and also worked a long time with Ms. Cavazos at Goodnight. So,
One of my Aunt Belia Cavazos, her great-granddaughter was one of the softball players.
oh, wow.
Thank you, Judge.
Well,
Thank you, thank you. Do I hear anything from?
So,
Can we
as Secretary of the Board, if Mrs. Villapando would like to do this per Robert's Rules of Order, it'd be a motion to reconsider the question, which was the last agenda item.
Right. Thank you.
Do I have anyone that wants to reconsider?
Was there a
That was her
motion?
motion, so we need a
That was
second.
the motion.
I'll
So
second the
you'll-
motion.
She'll second?
Oh, we are making a motion to reconsider.
She's made the motion to reconsider to name it Rodriguez Elementary. And
Ms. Villapando.
Ms. Villapando's making the motion. Ms. Halsey, you seconded?
I did.
Do we want to revote here?
Do we have a discussion?
Yes.
I didn't have the honor of knowing any of the people who were nominated, but the portfolios were tremendous. And obviously, it's a family that has a deep, deep commitment to equality and to education in this community for many years. So I'm certainly amenable to considering the family name if we could figure out a way to do that elegantly and appropriately. I'm just
Well,
open
on
to
the-
ideas.
On the plaque, which probably will cost more money, would be Rodriguez Elementary in honor, or with the three names of the three educators?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, I thought, like Ms. Halsey, thought that all three were worthy of honor. But I had to pick, and so I looked over these, and I think we had a process, and they put forward names, and all our schools are named after someone, and they call it by the family name, whether it be Bowie or Crockett or what have you, and I'm sure the family will be honored, even, the cousins or what have you, for, it to be named as the board's already voted. So I would be open to further honors to these individuals that we weren't able to name the school after. And I think this engagement we've had on names generally brings up, is good, because it's a growing district. We're gonna have a lot of facilities, and we have facilities right now without names. And so I would be supportive of that coming back in the future. But I do want to name it after an individual, and so I'm opposed to a reconsideration.
Ms. Costilla?
Well, I've known Ms. Cavazos for many, many years, so I think several of us maybe on the dais knew these individuals. I knew Dr. Rodriguez. I knew Ms. Rodriguez, Zoila Rodriguez. I think Judge, and I call her Judge still, Judge Rodriguez, I think she was very amicable to naming the school Rodriguez. And I know that Belia Cavazos, her maiden name is Rodriguez. I don't think that it would be a bad thing to do to name it Rodriguez Elementary School with some reference, because it is, they're all within the same family. And I understand, John, Mr. McLaughlin wanting to name somebody, a school after somebody in particular. That's understandable, but you have Crockett, you have Travis. You really don't see the first names in there, and if we could just name it, we might need some guidance from maybe our legal counsel to see how maybe we can capture the other three names here. It's not as if Ms. Cavazos is not part of that family, because she is. They're all related. I'm very proud that we had these three individuals nominated, and there were some people that mentioned to me from the committee that they did not know that they were related. But they are related, but that's just to show us that these individuals made a great contribution to our community. And I think that I would like to see that, Rodriguez Elementary School.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to echo something that one of my colleagues already said, which was, had this information been proposed prior to tonight, prior to Trustee Hansen's original motion, I might have been more applicable to this process taking place. Although I'm not surprised that this is kind of happening in front of everyone and we're kind of putting this together here. This, I think, is San Marcos CISD to a T. But with that being said, it has been said time and time again since the committee made its recommendation that we follow the recommendation of the committee, that we follow a process and procedure that this board voted on unanimously several months ago to initiate and to follow through with, which was naming elementary school number 7 after one of the 3 nominees. And so because of that, because of the comments made by some of my colleagues and even this community member about this board respecting the will of the community, which was the recommendation made by the chair at our last meeting, it was to select one of the 3 names. So when we vote to reconsider the previous question, I will be voting against reconsideration because we've already acted on this and we're following the process enacted by this board.
Ms. Halsey?
Ms. Hanson was.
Ms. Hanson?
I'm a little confused why we didn't have this during discussion before we voted 7-0. I mean, that to me would have been the time to discuss what we're discussing now. I mean, it seems silly that we voted 7-0, now we're going to come back and change that vote. It just doesn't make sense at all to me that when we had a period, nobody discussed anything. And to me, that would have been the time to discuss any changes. I just think.
I'm sorry for that, but that's just the way I feel.
No, I just think that we should stick to our vote. And
So we've got 3 people sticking to the vote. Did you want to say something, Ms. Halsey?
Well, I just wanted to go back to the naming facilities, CW local policy. It doesn't explicitly state that a facility may be named after a family, but it does explicitly state that a facility may be named after a corporation or organization that has made a significant contribution to society or education. So I guess it depends on how one interprets that, but I don't think it would be outside of the realm of the spirit as I read the policy. But
so what you're saying is it's within the board-approved policy for naming?
It would seem to me as we would be
within the scope,
sticking to the agreement that we made, and we are taking all 3 of the names that are recommended and combining them. We're not going outside the recommendation, so that would be amenable to me. But
Mr. Redondo?
Yeah, just I guess to clarify my previous statement, I think that our board policy allows us to take really any and all action at this point. I think it speaks to that the board has the final authority on any naming or renaming of any facility or structure. It was just, I think there was dialogue, conversation, and rhetoric from colleagues and the district and people on the committee that our board was essentially bound to do this by the policy and procedures, which was the 3 names. Do I agree with that interpretation? No, I think we could name it after even someone who was not on that list, the way that our board policy is written. But to be congruent with, I think, this process and what people's perceptions was of this process, I think it'd only be appropriate to follow through with the action that was previously voted upon, which was Trustee Hanson's motion.
Anybody else? I agree with my colleagues. These 3 names were excellent names, all very well-respected educators in the community. I think we've already taken our vote, and it's difficult to go back on the vote, even though I think it's a good idea to combine all 3. We've already had our vote. So if there isn't any more comments from anybody on the board, we're going to call for the vote.
On the motion to reconsider.
On the motion.
to do what? Can you?
Reconsider.
Reconsider what?
Her
question.
Ms. Villapando's motion was to reconsider and name it the Rodriguez Elementary School, right? Was that your motion?
Well, in honor of all 3.
Of all 3.
I don't think that's legal.
All in favor? 2, 3, 4. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
So the reconsider passes?
The reconsider passes.
Thank you.
It'll be Rodriguez Elementary.
I don't think that was done legally.
Reports and information, academic update.
Yes, Miss Jennifer Vogel will come forth and do a SHAC end-of-year update.
Thank you, school board members, for your support this year. We are here to give you our annual report for the 2017-2018 school year, and we really appreciate your input and your support for the SHAC and the goals and objectives that they've worked on throughout the year.
Will you wait until it clears out and we get quiet in here?
Okay.
Should just take a 5-minute.
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to take a break.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Vogel, we're going to take a 5-minute break here.
Okay.
Thank you. It is 7:37 and we've gone nonstop.
talked to me before.
So much for
You can
fun.
sit if you want.
I've been sitting for long. I don't think that was legal. That's long. My leg, my dress up.
I'm sorry? Oh, back to order at, we're reconvening at 7:44. I'd like to recognize Ms. Villapando.
Okay, apparently according to legal counsel, I have to rescind my motion? And Ann will have to rescind the second?
I second the rescind?
Yes.
Okay.
So and can we vote for rescinding the motion?
I'll do state what motion we're rescinding
Sending the
first.
rescission?
Yes. We're rescinding the motion that you made to name it the Gonzalez family. I'm sorry, where did I get Gonzalez? Rodriguez family, oh my God. The Rodriguez family, I'm so sorry.
Rodriguez Elementary in honor of all three members of the family, is that
Yes.
right?
That's what we're rescinding.
That's what we're rescinding. So would you rescind it and you second it?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor of
3,
rescinding
4,
it.
5, 6, 7. Any opposed? No. So now we need a rescinding motion for the first one, that went 7-0.
So
In order to have to make a brand-new motion, we have to rescind both motions.
So Kathy would have to rescind her motion.
She doesn't have
Nope.
to, you have to make.
Somebody else can do
Voted
it.
in favor, so we're all on the prevailing side. Someone has to make the motion.
Anybody can make the motion.
Oh. Well, I'll make the motion that we rescind the first motion that approved only Zoila Rodriguez.
Zoila Rodriguez, right. A second?
I will second.
Ms. Halsey seconds. Any discussion? Ready for the vote? 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2. Now we're ready for a brand-new motion.
Okay. I will make a motion that we name the new elementary school, Rodriguez Elementary, in honor of the 3 Rodriguez members that were recommended by the nominating committee, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, Mrs. Belia Rodriguez Cavazos, and Mrs. Zoila Rodriguez.
Second, do I hear a second?
I will second.
Ms. Halsey seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1. Motion passes. 6-1. We're ready for Ms. Vogel. Update on the shack, end of year.
Thank you. It's been an exciting year for SHAC for 2017, 2018. We've accomplished a great deal, and we want to give our end-of-the-year report and a little bit on what we're looking forward to next year. The Suicide Awareness and Prevention Subcommittees and the SHAC put out 2 community events in which they invited panels to speak and have public come to the presentations, one in the fall and one in the spring. Fitnessgram testing had been reinstated. It also had been structured so that all the elementary campuses were testing on the same criteria. We also saw the wellness program reviewed for the district employees, and we found that the district had a great deal of opportunities, and those opportunities for district employee wellness is listed on the website now. We also had the second year in a row that the CNA program at the high school implements the Heimlich Hero training to all the elementary campuses, which is a method of helping to prevent choking. We also had our district's wellness curriculum, which is the CATCH curriculum, was implemented, and training for all the PE teachers on that curriculum. We also want to thank the nutrition department who purchased the entire curriculum for 8th grade and below, including the pre-K program, in which even the materials, balls, jump ropes were also purchased. We also had a great deal of conversations and discussions on the sexual health education, and we brought forward the brief earlier this year to the school board, and the implementation of the sexual health education in both the middle school and the high school is in progress right now. We also have continued to maintain that less than 1% pregnancy repeat rate in our teen parenting program, which is well below even the state average, much less the national average. we're looking really forward to 2018, 2019. We have some things developing with some of our partners about including some additional activities in suicide awareness and prevention. We also are very interested in continuing to look through our sexual health education, and it kind of goes into, we had a great feedback this last spring on our Girl Talk, Boy Talk. It's been somewhat of a low participation, and we had some input that really helped us with some new ideas on how to wrap that around some enticing activities to bring kids and families in. So we hope to incorporate that next April. We also plan to look at our emergency procedures and including some things with social media policies and training. That will include, that's what we look forward to for next year. And I would like to introduce to you, I was about to do that earlier, Marty Nelson, the co-chair of the 2017-2018 SHAC.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Ms. Vogel.
Yes,
the
sir.
2018-2019 focus, is
Yes,
this
sir.
something that's been adopted by the SHAC?
No, it's not. It's just some ideas and conversations that were happening.
Okay, because I thought it was self-driven. You know, I didn't think the admin told SHAC, this is what we're gonna do, now y'all all vote on this. Instead, it was an organic process
Yes.
from the parents. But
Yes.
it seems like it's the tail wagging the dog. If you come to us, you know, in advance and say, this is what we're gonna do next year.
I could see where you might see that point. In our April meeting, we actually just wrote down what the different SHAC members wanted to see talked about next year and included in discussions. And so that's how it was brought forward to here. Those are the items that were brought in the SHAC meeting in April.
Ms. Halsey?
I just wanted to say thanks to y'all for the work you've done this year. I've been able to attend several meetings, and I appreciate it. I appreciate hearing from all of the different voices that were in the room. And I especially appreciate the continuing focus on the suicide awareness and prevention. I went to the program that you put on in the fall, and it was extraordinary. I was very happy to have my junior high school daughter there with me, and I hope that that's information that we can make sure to get to all kids, because as we know all too well, that violence that stems from that isolation and bullying and discrimination is just too prevalent. So thank you.
Ms. Hanson?
I want to also thank you for all of y'all's hard work and dedication, especially one of the ideas of making sure the adaptive PE curriculum serves those students who need that type of curriculum. I appreciate y'all's efforts.
Stradadondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Yes, Ms. Vogel, I know during a previous SHAC presentation to the board, we discussed the sex education policy, and that I think the last time it was approved was in 2008 or something.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming, or I'm hoping, that that curriculum isn't the same curriculum that was approved. I'm hoping it's the program that was approved, but not the curriculum that comes with the program. Is that
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
In 2008, those curriculum topics, it was big decisions and draw the line, respect the line were approved. Last year in 2016, October, we had a community forum at central office in which we reviewed those curriculums and others in addition. We had 30 people in attendance, and they continue to want to move forward. Both big decisions and draw the line, respect the line were in revision. Draw the line, respect the line actually had their revision in 2016, and so we had that curriculum available to us in October. Big decisions made their final revision. We had a draft, but the final revisions in 2017. So we have the most updated, most widely used middle school and high school curriculums, and we had a committee of parents and community members of different organizations, Hayes Caldwell Council of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, Women's Center, those sort of things, to have input onto whether we should look at other curriculum, and we looked at those, but at the same time, they came back with a recommendation to stick with big decisions and draw the line, respect the line.
Okay.
But that's a great clarification question. Thank you.
In the middle school, it's being taught in what subject?
In both in the high school and middle school, it is being taught in science.
Science.
It is freshman biology at San Marcos High School, and then it is in both 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it's in the science class. Thank you.
Did someone else have a question? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and now our architect, Coleman Ureste, will give a construction update, followed by our Director of construction and facilities, Mr. Jay Weston.
Hello, my name is Coleman Uresti. I'm with Perkins & Will, Senior Project Manager. I'm here today to give you an update on the bond plan, and I'm going to start with my regular routine, saying right on schedule still. Still, overall, we're right on schedule with all the projects. It's been a busy month. We're really trying to get in, meet with all the campuses before everybody goes on vacation or during the summer break so that we can get some good progress. We don't have to keep calling them back during the summer. If you remember last year, elementary school, we were moving pretty fast. We called quite a few people back in. They were awesome. They came back, gave input, and we're hoping we don't have to do that too many times this summer. So we're really trying to get it really busy this week, this month. Jumping over to transportation real quick, individual projects. Contractors out there working, making a lot of progress. It doesn't look like a lot until you come up out of the ground. So right now, they're putting all the piping in for the plumbing. They're forming up all the grade beams. They've actually poured most of the grade beams. If you drive by today, you'll be able to see that. You can see in these pictures here, this is the formwork that's going to hold that concrete in place. So they'll put all that around the outside, and then they'll come and pour a slab on top of that. Some close-up pictures of how that works. You can see the piping starting to come out. The penetrations through the grade beams are there. And then we have the rebar that's running in. So they'll pour concrete in there. It'll form up. They'll remove the concrete or the woodwork, and then they'll put the slab on top. Once that slab's on top, ready to go, you can see they already have the CMU block out there, so they're going to be able to start moving fast. Masons out there, they're just going. So you'll start to see a lot of progress here coming up out of the ground real soon. At Hernandez, we have a bid date for the re-roof. We have a bid date of June 4th. I know on the agendas it's showing that we did approval, but we have a bid date for June 4th. And we'll come back in June for a GMP approval from the board, probably in June or July. June, starting construction in July. I think we moved up that schedule. We've been hearing a lot of roofers being able to move that schedule up and do some of that work earlier than we thought they were going to. And that is CM at risk, so that's with Cadence McShane, and they're handling all the bidding. At Miller Middle School, we've had our meetings out there for visioning. We had a large group. It was awesome. I mean, some really great ideas. The teachers out there are amazing. You know, my favorite meetings are we didn't talk about restrooms the entire time. We talked about the spaces that the kids are in, how we can make the spaces more innovative, more collaborative. And so you can see, really had some great discussions. Have a great leader out there that's really helping understand, keeping people to understand big picture, not getting stuck just in their classroom as well. Great discussions. We're actually going to come out. We also had our programming meeting, so we had each individual department on campus come out, tell us what their needs are in each of the spaces, and then we're actually coming back tomorrow to at 9:45 to go over the program to make sure we have all the spaces that we need. We're meeting with Mr. Barton as well to say, okay, is this the direction curriculum's going? Do we have all the spaces? And then we'll actually go in and start the layout of the additions and the renovation work. New elementary school, as you might have heard, the project has bid, and this is for later in the board meeting. We're going to go through the process of selecting a contractor and approving a price with you guys. Planning on starting construction in June, ending next July, and that's all in your documents there. And then the high school, we're going out to bid on it, not tomorrow, Wednesday. And so we'll release drawings for bidding. This is a competitive seal project. We're still on schedule, making really good progress. We're finalizing all those final details, making sure that the contractor knows what to bid. Remember, we're talking about the quantity. We need to know those quantities, the amount of roofing they need to have, those kinds of things. So we're starting to get all that documented and finalized right now. We've submitted already to the city for permitting about 2 months ago. And so we're waiting for responses from them. We'll try to get that into this round before we send it out to bid to kind of speed that permitting process up. And then On an off note, while we've been out there, administration has asked us to look at a long-range plan for parking and site traffic circulation. That'll be coming later during this summer when we have, I would like to get a civil engineer on board so they can start to understand traffic pattern and that thing. So probably the next year when those parents aren't trained, they're not sure where to go, we can kind of see how traffic patterns are working. And then that way we can make sure that we hit it. So it's just straightforward. We don't need a bunch of signage saying parents over here, buses over here. We just want to make it so everybody knows where they're supposed to go. So we'll take a look at that when school starts up to kind of get that process going. I know that we had a couple of questions, so I tried to overlay the new version over the existing Google shot. And just to kind of recap some of the site items. Here we have this new bus loop along right here that's going to come in, and we're going to be able to subdivide that loop and make it certain crossing areas, as I talked about last time. So we know we have a parking lot on that side. We want to make sure it's as safe as possible, so we're creating crosswalks along that side. This summer, school district is actually coming in and installing fencing, and so we're going to be able to work around some of that fencing. It'll already actually be there when construction starts, and then that'll start to enclose some of these spaces. Act kind of as our construction fence to be able to separate students from construction as well. So it really is working out pretty well from a coordination and a timing standpoint. And then overall, talking about that long-range plan, talking about is this the best location for student parking? Where is the best location for staff? How do we enter the site from a site circulation standpoint? If we're backing up traffic all the way through this four-way stop out here, you know, is this the best location? Maybe we need to take a look at that. And those are some of those things that we'll start to do from almost a traffic impact analysis, less formal, but we'll be able to start to see some of those and see if there's better ways to lay out traffic circulation on that site. And then I think exciting is the administration has started. We went through and sat down with cabinet and went through programming and visioning session. Really started to talk about and reconfirm that original program that we've all seen, and really just broke it down and made sure that all the needs currently are still meeting that square footage that we had always talked about in the past. We are right on track from a square footage standpoint. We really got into a lot of the details, how we wanted this thing to be laid out, kind of taking that innovation approach that we're doing in our schools and making sure that we push it to administration too. Everybody doesn't need to be in their own single office. We want people to be able to collaborate and talk. So why would we be in locked individual spaces as well? So we really got into some really good discussions, and I think you see that from this draft program that we're presenting tonight. We're actually going to meet with administration next week to kind of refine some of this programming, and then also we're going to start talking more in depth about some of these diagrams on how the building could be laid out. We want to know those important adjacencies. Does business and finance need to be close to HR? Does SPED need to be close to TLA? Those are some of those things that we want to dive into a little bit deeper to make sure that we're getting the right departments near each other for day-to-day collaboration. And then talked about how can we separate, because we're sharing a site, we're sharing a building, how do we separate and make the administration separate from the rest of the elementary school? I think that's probably one of the most important portions of this project. And just as an example, because I knew you guys wanted to see some things, we haven't got to talk to admin, but you know, simplifying traffic out there. If I come in and line up against an existing road, it creates a safe intersection at that location instead of offsetting it. And then you come in here and you have your parking off of here, you have an entry off of this backside. So you don't even feel like you're walking up to the elementary school. These are some of those things that we're gonna have 2 or 3 different options to be able to talk to admin before we come back and present any solutions to you. But just to kind of give you an idea of some of the options that we're looking at, wanted to give you an update here. And then something that's been reoccurring.
Coleman, before you move on, I had a comment on that slide. I know it was brought up by a citizen at our last board meeting, I guess, just a perception of having concerns about the additional traffic that might now occur in those somewhat older neighborhoods if we put this administration complex on this site. And although I agree when it comes to kind of transportation to line it up with an already constructed arterial through the neighborhood, I guess a concern of that would be if, several dozen employees are driving that, 3 times a day when they're getting there, on their lunch break, and then in the evening. And so I don't know if there's probably an expensive way to have the traffic go all the way around the site versus going through the neighborhood, but if we can just see kind of proposed options on that, so we can say that we had that conversation and we decided to move forward with, if this is what the proposal is, that we move forward with that.
No
Thank
problem,
you.
no problem at
Ms.
all.
Costilla?
The citizen brought up the issue regarding, since we're gonna have the parking lot built there, and the potential for maybe, since they've experienced some flooding, tell me about how that's going to.
So anytime we add impervious cover on this site, for example, when you added this parking lot in the back here, you triggered the need for a detention, on-site detention.
Okay.
So, because your impervious cover is going to cause that runoff, right? And that's where, so we're going to actually divert all water that's on impervious cover to a holding pond. It's their detention pond. And it releases very slowly.
Okay.
So over days instead of just running off your site that day. So that is something that's built into the city requirements, by state requirements that we'll have. I believe, depending on the location, and this isn't a final, this is just an example, depending on the location of that parking lot, we could probably slow down a lot of the water from the rest of that site. This is a high point here and it's sloping here, right? You could see that channel that runs there. So we're gonna be able to probably help alleviate some of that current problem that they have on site.
You're saying that maybe that parking might be someplace else, or what?
Yes, we don't know where it's gonna be yet. We're just showing some examples. We have 8 or 9 examples and we're needing to sit down with administration.
But along with looking at that, you're also looking at that other possibility that we have.
Yep, for sure.
Ms. Halsey?
So the 80 new parking spaces down in the right-hand corner, that's where the current playfield is that correct?
No, so it's upside down. The playfield is, or the playground is right here.
Not the playground, there's an unused football field, soccer field?
Yes, yes.
That's on the top?
No, the old
down there.
stadium is right here.
Right. So a conversation I would really like to have with my colleagues is about what opportunities there are in this space to create some green spaces for the students and the community to use, particularly noting that there are really no soccer fields anywhere on the east side in our district or on the city. And if this might be an opportunity for us to partner with any other community organizations and potentially create additional space for play, for sports, for something in this neighborhood.
Ms. Villalpando?
I would like to ask, this, on this side, that gray area, yeah, right there, that's a creek there, right? Or, I know it runs water, right?
Yes, yep.
Right next to that driveway.
A drainage ditch,
And then a drainage ditch. Okay, so in relationship to that, where is the detention pond?
So-
Because I know that curves, you don't have the full picture, but it curves all the way down this way, that ditch.
Right, you have, your existing detention pond is right here. And really what that is doing is, and we're waiting for a survey, so don't hold me to it. But right now, it is picking up the water just from this new, when it was built, impervious cover. So it's at the highest point, so it's picking up that drainage from that parking lot.
Okay.
If we add any impervious cover, we would pick up that impervious cover and probably pick up some of this drainage here. This one, and I'm waiting for a survey, I believe pours into this channel that you were talking about.
Well, it does turn right there, just like the parking lot
Right.
turns.
Yep.
It goes down that way.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And we're waiting for a survey. We've ordered the survey, and we're waiting to get that to verify all topography and existing features there.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. I guess just to respond to Trustee Halsey's comment, I think the board has already kind of set a definitive price on this project in total at a previous board meeting, but I would be open to having a discussion, or if Coleman and staff could bring back, not like an alternate, but ideas or proposal to improvements of the site when it comes to parkland dedication, soccer fields, things like that, and maybe the board in partnership with the city or in later conversation can say, you know, here's what, you know, could possibly go there, and if we voted on a second motion later on down the road to approve funds for that outside of the scope of work that we're currently doing, I'd be open to that, and maybe there's even opportunity to partner there, like you said, Ms. Halsey, with an outside entity, the city, or what have you. But I'd like to see what we could do with that site, and I don't even know kind of what the scope of the property is that we own there, but I think we own a substantial amount surrounding Mendez and the proposed central administration building.
Ms. Costilla?
That parking lot, could it be moved over to this other area right above it in that area?
Absolutely, yes.
Because I think that if we were to even have this discussion about this green space, that it would be better that you would have a larger area. Karen, didn't you mention to me there were 16 acres or whatever, how many acres?
Yeah, we're still looking to find out, but I believe that whole acreage
Because
is
if,
about.
I mean, if we're gonna be looking at that, which I'm not against that, then we would really need to move it to make it, to have a much more open space rather than going around just having a small one. That way you can really utilize the space much better when it's a lot more open and you don't have something right there in the middle.
Absolutely. And I think what we can do is any of our solutions or what we bring back to you for approval next month, we'll make sure that we show locations of that, of where play fields could be, soccer fields specifically. We could probably lay that out.
Well, that parking area is already there. It just needs a lot more work.
Right, but we're trying to not have, we didn't want to have the bus going
I
through
understand.
and
In the
big,
front.
huge buses and cars mixing is not a great
No,
idea.
I understand that.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes, to the right of the, what I call the bus circle, not the loop part, but the actual where they turn around, are those the old tennis courts?
Those are the old tennis courts,
And are
yes.
they usable?
They would need quite a bit of work to get them to be back to being.
That's what I thought, that they're, okay.
And if we do anything, it'd probably be the best is probably to demo, just to offset some of the impervious cover.
Right.
You know, just from a street approach as well, it just kind of clean that
They've
up.
been needed to be gone for a long time.
Yep, and we can make sure we get that listed.
Ms. Halsey?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it would be great if we could just see a couple options so that we don't go ahead and put down a new parking lot and then think later on, oh, we could have had a soccer field. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Continue.
And something that's been reoccurring when we've given updates on this is the water that is underneath the building. So what we've been looking at is the way that it was originally designed, so you have a crawl space under there. Maintenance has been on top of this for quite a while. They know most of the issues. We actually sat down this week. They got underneath and were crawling around in it, and I kind of ducked my head in there. But what we were looking at is the way it's originally built is they have basically holding areas. So your drainage should be draining to a pump system like this throughout that crawl space. And over time, what has happened is you have clay. Clay is going to swell and shrink. And over time, you've lost that positive grading towards the sump pumps. And so one of the solutions could be to regrade underneath the building. But I think over the next couple of months, we're going to be able to see what's really going on. Their understanding is, or my understanding, that it's rain. It's not groundwater. It is rain. And what's happening, if you walk around the outside of that building, it looks like it slopes off quite quickly around the outside of that building. But if you, upon further inspection, you can see up against the building, it's holding water. Those downspouts are open, so and so it sits there against the building, and it can seep under the grade beam and get into the open space, or that crawl space. So what they're doing right now is they're buying bigger pumps, because the older pumps, they're older and they were smaller, and so it wasn't able to pump out. It'd take 3 days to pump out. So what they're doing is they've gotten some larger pumps, and we're going to keep an eye on it over the summer to make sure, double check that it's not groundwater. They're pretty sure. They've been dealing with this for quite a while now, and we're going to be able to keep an eye on that. And then we have some solutions. I think the easiest solutions are probably to pick up all the downspouts underground and take it away to probably the new detention pond is probably going to be the first solution. With that, you'd probably want to regrade, do fine regrading around the outside of the building to pick up some of these little low spots around the outside of the building. So that's another part of the solution. And then we'll see how that goes. And then what we could do is see if we need to spend the money to go underneath the building and regrade and create new areas for sump pumps. But I think by picking up the water before it can get under there is going to solve it. It's a much more efficient way to approach this issue at this time. And I've got a picture underneath it. So you can see a little bit muddy. And there are certain areas that do hold water, and it's just because over time, shrinking and swelling, you lose that positive drainage. And it's pretty common under these types of spaces. And then wanted to give you an update on the elementary school renovations. Last week we had visioning, talked about libraries, talked about resource, talked about that flexibility to make sure that we have that opportunity that we're creating at the new elementary school for all the elementary schools, as we talked about in the bond. And then on Wednesday, we're going to go and meet with, so we had, for visioning, we had everybody, all the elementary schools meet and talk big picture. On Wednesday, we're going back to each individual campus, talking about their individual needs at each campus and how they use their building, where flex spaces could go, and how each library could be converted more into that media center approach. So we'll be able to give you a lot more update at the next bond meeting, or the next board meeting for that one. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Any
any
questions,
questions?
comments? Thank you very much.
I have
Mr.
one thing,
Oh,
just
okay.
on water at the potential new admin facility. I want to make sure that you're completely comfortable that we're not going to have any water issues on that site before we spend any resources on developing, plans and things like that. Because, I mean, I guess it's like a fault of a group that you always try to prevent the last mistake you made from happening again. But specifically here, we built a facility, we relied upon folks, it flooded, they all looked at each other, and no one really wanted to take responsibility for that. So just as an individual trustee, I want you to know that I'm counting on you guys as the experts, so I don't want to move on it until you're comfortable.
Okay, will do. And we're actually meeting, we have all of our consultants, we're meeting out there on Wednesday. So we have our civil, we have our MEP, we have structural, we have everybody going out there to do a walk, and they know the issue, and so we're gonna be looking at that as well.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Uresti. Grimaldi?
And now Jay will do his
Oh, Jay.
presentation on CEC.
On this one.
Yes.
Before he starts the presentation, President Cantu, did we approve the Child Development Center? What month did we approve that remodel? We haven't?
Oh, that's
You
what
wanted
we're-
to know all the detail before we did.
We kept asking questions,
Just
remember?
I don't recall that we've ever not done this in a two-step process. Like, we consider something, then a budget amendment comes back to us. This is the first time I've seen a budget amendment. I don't know that I philosophically mind that, but the budget amendment is in essence the approval of the project. Is that how this is working?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I should have separated it out, but I just took it because we were looking at it, we've been reviewing it, and so we were gonna do it that we're taking this as a job order contract, and, so I put it in the budget amendment for you to approve or not approve.
It's really a process question, that's why.
Oh,
But
sorry.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate your answer because you put it together, but I wanted to make sure I didn't miss it in a prior meeting or something, because I looked back through minutes and I didn't see it, but, okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm Jay Weston, the Director of Facilities and Construction for the district. And
Cindy Casparis, Director of Purchasing.
And we have talked about renovation of the TLA building to CDC. As you know, last fall, we moved out of our administration building. Therefore, we combined the teaching and learning and assessment departments, moved to combine with the central office administration facility, and which left a vacant space where the teaching and learning had been, which is adjacent to the CDC. So we began to explore some options at moving the Child Development Center into that building. And there were several reasons that we determined to investigate this. The Child Development Center is in portable buildings. They were installed in the late 80s and early 90s. And of course, we all know those buildings don't last as long as another structure, a brick and block structure. So according to Wikipedia, they only last about 10 years. Of course, we know that's a little bit short, but these buildings are approaching 30 years old, so we determined it was probably a good idea. Also, some of these portable buildings have had some damage due to water and from flood events. They're pier and beam construction, which of course allows water to sit underneath them at times. It is at the bottom of the a portion of the hill that we own all the way down Highway 123. There's also some problems with the HVAC in one of the areas. We are presently in their kitchen student dining area. We're having to supplement the cooling with a unit air conditioner. Of course, that's not very energy efficient, and portable buildings aren't very energy efficient anyway. And of course, the TLA building was built in 1985, but it is a masonry structure on a slab with a standing seam metal roof, which is a much more durable building. It also has a little bit more square footage, probably about 500 more square feet than the current CDC. And with these buildings being adjacent to one another, we felt like that we could make that work and not have to add a playground to another area. So with that said, I showed some buildings. This is the overall Google Earth shot of the TLA and the CDC. Of course, you can see the playground stretches out toward Staples Road. I think y'all know which is which. I don't have a pointer with me, but Coleman didn't leave his pointer for me, but which is the TLA building and the CDC. This is the picture of the front of it. Of course, on the right is the TLA, or was current TLA building, and the Child Development Center. This is a picture inside the office of the CDC showing that it is pretty overcrowded in there. This is their kitchen dining area. This is the hallway in the TLA, which as I get to the scope of work, you'll see that it does have some lockers in it, which we plan to remove and reuse in another, well, actually out here at the high school possibly, because they won't be needed there. And this is a picture of a classroom in the TLA building. This is the boys' restroom showing the stalls. They are not ADA compliant, so we will have to remove those partitions and a portion of the wall to do some replumbing. Anyway, the scope of work is to demo all the portable buildings and remove them from the site, grade the site, and add fencing to attach play area to the TLA building. Demo both restrooms, the boys and girls, and add appropriate ADA accessible toilets for the age group being served, and also to accommodate the adults that would be working at the facility. Add a washer and dryer connection in the women's restroom, add 2 sinks, a double sink to 3 classrooms, remove and replace carpet in 4 of the rooms that will be used as classrooms, and also replace the carpet in the office area because of some wall removal. Remove the lockers from the hallway, and replace with shelving, remove the walls in the area labeled Office 107, add some concrete. I'll show you the drawings. This is the demo plan, and then we plan to remove the, mouse going here, no. Come on, let me see your pointer.
No, Greg's got
Okay,
one.
We plan on changing this. This is the current entrance. It's actually, and we plan on tearing out a wall here in this office and adding an outside door so that when the parents bring their children in, they would be coming through the secure area, and also when they come to pick them up, they would be have to come through the office area. We would still leave these doors on each side so that we wouldn't affect egress at all in case of a fire. But we do plan to make a new way for the people to come into the building and to come and receive their kids. Our plan is to do this project as a job order contract. I don't think we've done any job order contracting since I've been here, so I gave y'all some wording to kind of explain what that is. And we're going to do this under our by board contract pricing with a company called Basic IDIQ out of Austin, out of their Austin office. They have offices all over the state. Job order contracting is a construction delivery method that organizations use for a wide variety of renovations, repairs, minor construction projects, et cetera. Job order contracting is most commonly used to perform, a rapid response construction project or renovation project. It's just another method of delivery of construction, like competitive seal proposal or construction manager at risk, which we're using both of those in this present bond. It is the way it's competitively bid is by fixed price or contract based on established or published unit prices. And if y'all want some more explanation on that, I would let Ms. Kasparis, she's our purchasing director and handles all those contracts. The cost for the job order contract is $221,000. I would like to also add some contingency to this because of unforeseen conditions during construction. On some of the scope that I highlighted there, we may do some of the work ourselves, like the shelving in the hallways and adding the fencing to enclose the parking lot. Also, there's a possibility, I don't believe we will, but this renovation amount may trigger us to have to put a fire suppression sprinkler system into that building. If it does, I do have some pricing on that, but that's one reason the contingency is so high. And of course, we would probably want to add some topsoil and some grass planting and possibly even replace one of the HVACs in the current TLA building. So that's all I have for the presentation. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Hanson?
Yes, in the portable, you showed us an area where the children were fed.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they going to be fed in this building? In the
Let Ms.
classrooms or?
Vogel answer that question.
Okay, that's the back entrance?
No.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't, right.
You see how this is a bigger area right here?
Yeah.
That's.
I just didn't see it anywhere, and I was like.
Okay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
So, I really don't like it. It seems like education, like K through 12 group tries to design early childhood center themselves. Like we've got big classrooms, like we've got classes with desks, and because we're just trying to retrofit something that already exists. But for my little ones, like we wanted a place with light and where the outside came in and where it was intentional, not with this sort of institutional feel of a bathroom. And we got like 2-year-olds in there, right? Or little kids. It
Yes.
just seems, and the outside of the facility, I know we can't do anything about that because it's so old, so it just seems depressing. And I think that we're probably trying to be budget conscious, and I appreciate that because I'm into that idea. But I mean, these are our kids. They're going to go to our schools most likely. They're most likely going to graduate from San Marcos High School, and what happens those early years is so key, and they do a great job, and it's way better than the portable that they're in right now. I get that. But if we're going to spend this much money, and it is not an insignificant sum, it's $225,000, I'd love to have something I could be a little more proud of.
Okay, well, as far as renovation, I mean, this is going to cost us somewhere probably around $50 a square foot to renovate this building. So if you're talking about a new build, that's going to be, I would say, at least 4 times that.
But it's also
I'm just saying, we are being budget
35-year-old
conscious.
building. I mean, do we even know what the expected lifespan is of this? Are we going to put 250, 225, 250 grand into something, and then in like 8 years we're going to, you know, I mean, what about the other systems, the roof and those sort of things?
It's a standing seam metal roof. The roof, we're not having any issues there with leaks. You know, it's as you can see, it's mainly CMU block walls. It's a very well-built facility. It is, you know, 30 years old as well, 33 years old. It was built in 1985. So it is an older facility. Bringing light in, I mean, you could spend some more money and add, you know, more windows or even skylights if you wanted to, but it is, I mean, it is a institutional building. I will agree with that.
I guess he's talking about, we're looking at the class of like 2030, and so there needs to be a lot of more innovative technological improvements, so it doesn't, I get what Mr. McLaughlin is saying, it looks just like a regular classroom.
The only thing
It's hard to be innovative without a lot of money, but we're looking at the class of 2030 in there, 30-ish.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. The only thing is, it, like Mr. McLaughlin said, I believe it's better than the portables, and those portables are, if we don't move them out of those portables, we're going to have to do something. And you know, I mean, I feel like we could get this done this summer. It is an expense. It's a significant expense to the district.
I mean, we could have our architect take a look at the building and see what can be renovated through. It is going to be more timely and it will be more costly. Now, we surely can do that and have our architect give us some different design of the building if that's what the board would like. But I believe the charge was to try and get them into this building before the end of summer. So that's.
And if it was like 50 grand or something, and it was like this is way better than the portable, I'd be way for it. But you know, it's
200
it's multiples of 5 of that. And can we temporarily repurpose? Don't we have some empty rooms at Bonham? Do we have any ability to temporarily house kids there while we figure this out on a more long-term basis?
I think we only have one room.
Only one?
Ms. Costilla?
I haven't visited several CDC units in my professional life. This is a good layout. I know what you're talking about, windows, but keep in mind that we're looking at a child development center here, not a classroom going forward with 30, I mean, when you're talking about, you know, looking at pre-K or whatever we want to get them all prepared. I'm not trying, but the space there, Jennifer, you have a lot more space there than what you did, and I inspected your building before, many years back. And with the space that you have there, how much more space do you have there?
I believe that you quoted 500 square feet. That really doesn't seem like a whole lot, but there's a lot more open space in that portable, which is cut up. Another significant factor Mr. Wesson didn't mention, the portables are not certified for wind conditions of over 70 miles per hour. So when we have wind, and we have wind over 70 miles per hour several times a year, we have to vacate the portable buildings and move into TNL. That's pretty tough because you can imagine what 70 mile per hour winds or higher are. It also is rain and hail, and we're gathering 40 little kids, carrying them as much as we can and putting them in baby beds and rolling them over. So, I mean, we have some needs to really make this project come to a close so that we can make a safer environment.
How many square feet do you have right now where you're at for the number of children? Because, of course, the state goes by the number of children in the category of the age.
There's about 4,800 square feet there total, but they're using a good bit of that for office space now.
Right.
And so this is about 5,400 square feet.
Right, which is more usable for the purpose of what a CDC is meant to be.
Correct.
So if we were to build something with that presupposing that we were to build something like that, are we looking at more than $275,000 here?
To build another building like that?
Well, I'm just asking. I'm
Yes,
asking the
ma'am.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what we're trying to do here is accommodate a program that while we have, and I think in here it said something about the structure of the program is a good structure. Is that what, did I read in here?
Yeah, I feel like that building is a very good structure. I mean, it's on the slab. The slab's not cracked anywhere that we can tell. It's CMU walls on the inside and out, and then covered in brick with a standing seam metal roof.
And I'm not saying we should not have any windows in there, which we would have to look at the possibility, but, you know, just coming from the background that I came, John,
Sure.
you know, I can tell you that going out there and doing an inspection and measuring and looking at all the safety issues that are in there, you really have a good place here.
And there are windows in those rooms.
For that purpose.
Each classroom has at least one window.
It's just,
So I don't know what more we could do other than maybe build a whole new one to maybe everybody would be happy with that. I think what we need to be looking at is what we've got and what we can afford, and talk to the individuals, the people that are in that field, and say, does it serve the purpose that we need to serve? We don't want these children in a jail. No, we don't. We you know, we want them to expose them to light and everything, but do we want to have a safe environment for them? This is what the state is looking for, a state environment for the children that in all ages that are going to be there. And how many, up to what age do you have there, Jennifer?
We serve up to 5.
5 years? Yeah.
Ms. Halsey?
I agree with Mr. McLaughlin, and I would be very interested in seeing Perkins and Will do some schematics on how we can repurpose this space so that it both meets all the codes, but also looks at creating the most innovative learning environment for our youngest learners in an economical fashion. So I think that there are opportunities to do that, and I would entrust them. I think this is a good first step, but I'd be in favor of having them come back with something.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, President Cantu. I just want to add my name to, I think, the third now trustee requesting that additional information. During our bond construction update, Mr. Uresti, our representative for Perkins and Will, essentially described the process that takes place when we're designing a new elementary school, or, you know, the renovations at libraries and the thoughtfulness that goes into this. And, you know, I agree with, you know, Mrs. Costilla that, you know, this building should be in compliance, but I'm assuming our current CDC is also being, you know, licensed regularly, and at least as my 3 years on the board, I haven't been told that we've been out of compliance.
Always in
But
compliance.
I mean, if we designed elementary school number 7 to just be in compliance, I'm sure it would look very different from what it was. You know, if we just had to do what the code prescribed to us, or, you know, setbacks and easements and things like that, I think it would look very differently. But obviously, with our children going into these facilities, we want to, you know, have, if not the latest and greatest, at least something that is visually appealing. And I applaud the staff for the work and the time that they've put in so far. And I've made a comment at a previous board meeting is, you know, if we're going to spend this money on this structure, I'd rather do it either right the first time, which I think this is right the first time, but if we're going to spend this amount of money, I'd rather do more, since obviously this is impacting especially our youngest students. Mrs. Castilla just referenced, you know, 5 and under. And so again, I would just wanted to echo the sentiment of, you know, incorporating the expertise from Perkins and Will and seeing what we can do in an economical fashion to even make this proposal better before it's approved by this board in the form of a budget amendment tonight.
Anyone else?
I guess so.
I just want to talk about time. Timing is the issue here, and so before, I just want to make sure, are we gonna, I mean, if we delay this project, we won't have anything new for you by August.
Correct.
I don't know if that's gonna be an issue or not. I know you were hoping to get new kids in, and so how is this going to affect CDC if we delay this in time?
I think it's kind of one of those ticking time bomb things. The portable buildings have some major repairs, and we've expended some major expense in the last 24 months for the portables. And we're going to wait for some of those things to come back again. They're not gone away. And it all relates primarily to the flooding. Apparently, the portables were built on a spring system, and so they have springs underneath them. And so it takes a long time for them to dry out. And we, last spring, went 9 weeks with Servac running, fans from 5:30 until 6:30 in the morning, and then those machines were around everywhere, and no baseboards, and that's just, we're waiting for that to happen again. A nice, warm, wet period is going to bring us back to that expense and that problem. We also know this roof, because it's portable buildings and it's shifting constantly, and you have to reset the portables, the roof lines also are cracking, and so the roof is going to need repair. It's falling off. Every storm that comes through, there's 150 tiles everywhere. So we're just
there
waiting.
is some repairs that would need to be done if we didn't go ahead and, move them out of the portables. I mean, there's some wall repairs, there is some roof repairs, shingle repairs, there's some HVAC stuff that needs to be done, and those floors under there have gotten wet. They are pier and beam construction, so water has soaked up in there. We've gotten all that dried out. We've remediated any mildew from those places, but again, if we do get rain, that is sitting there. I do think our bus transportation facility, because there's a detention pond right above them, it's going to help that some, but water does still run down under those buildings and sit there. So
I could bring something back at the meeting on the 12th if you'd like.
It's not just up to me, but when we get to the items for action, I'm going to move that we table this for further consideration, just because I wouldn't send my 2 or 3-year-old to something that looks like that and has that institutional feel, and so I don't want to, vote to do something in a hurry or, what have you, that we're stuck with for 2 decades that I'm that dissatisfied with.
Ms. Hanson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, my concern is getting them into a safe place. It may not be the ideal if we were building new, but I think it's a good, safe area and provides the classrooms they need for the different age groups, as well as easy access for the parents. And I think it's critical that, because if something happens, where are we going to put them in the meantime? Rent more buildings, when we could go ahead and remodel this one and have it ready to go for August and increase the number of students that they're allowed to accept.
What's our enrollment right now?
We currently serve 40. We're licensed for 60. We could fill up to 60 space, but it's pretty crowded, and it does a lot of wear and tear. Our plumbing is a big issue.
What is the youngest?
The youngest is 6 weeks. We're licensed to 6 weeks. We also serve teen parents. They come in 1 day a week or more, and they have computer stations, and they work on their work, and they have a teacher that works with them to make, once they deliver the baby, they do their work and have their baby present, and they get counted present so that we have good attendance and it doesn't affect their academic progress.
We see our at-risk student performance numbers like every year and how much we struggle there. And there's a lot of those kids we can't reach when they're 1 or 2 or 3 to provide an alternate environment to what their family could otherwise provide, and we're playing catch up from pre-K to K to high school. Sure. We do have the fortune of having 40 kids that will probably all be labeled at, well, not all, I don't want to, but that the vast majority will be labeled at risk as they progress through the system. And so doing right by them pays dividends for us down the line and how they perform and how ready they are to move on in their education. I don't want to be, we've also got kids crowded in overcrowded classrooms while we wait for the new elementary school to be built. So, and there's precedent for this. To do it right, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. I know Steph put some time into this. I hate to be banging on it, but I'm just uncomfortable.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. I guess for me, and I was hoping that we would just have support to delay this, even if it is to the 12th meeting. But I understand, as the rhetoric grows of, ticking time bomb, or, God forbid something happens to one of these kids or the portable, this kind of promoting this impetus that action has to be taken tonight, or a trustee who is on the losing side or prevailing side might be at fault if something happens. So I guess now my question for staff is, and I don't know if Mrs. Garza is still here, Ms. Owens is still here, but I know several years ago this board spent a significant amount of money to retrofit the classrooms at Hernandez to be pre-K serving classrooms with smaller commodes and things like that. And I'm assuming we didn't approve funds to renovate those. So one, I'm wondering, is there available space at Hernandez to retrofit that in the short term if we need a short-term solution? Or, and I hate to do this to Bonham, but I think, we can all work on this together, is if there might not be classrooms being utilized at Bonham for classrooms, but community room for parents or, a STEM lab or something so that, we can do this right. And if that is expending money in the long term, I'd much rather spend $500,000 in substantial renovations and improvements than $250,000 to do something quick because we need something done by the beginning of the year. And I don't want to kind of micromanage this from up here, but I'm just nervous that some people are saying, if we don't do this, what's going to happen to these kids? And I think that's an inappropriate conversation to have when we're talking about a facility that has been fine for the last several years, but it's just coming to us now right before summer, and we have to do this, and this budget amendment has to be approved for the children, which, just as I'm on this soapbox, is really aggravating as an individual trustee when trustees and staff kind of go against each other and say, we're doing this because it's what's best for kids. It's almost like accusing the person on the opposite side of that conversation that their vote or their perspective is anti-student or not in favor of the kids. And I think that's an inappropriate dynamic for both trustees and staff to kind of propel as we have these conversations. But I've been meaning to say that for a while, but I just wanted to say it now since I'm up here doing this.
Ms. Halsey?
I just wanted to just restate how important the 0 through 5 years are for the child development, and also to say that as part of the city's commission on youth and families, we saw a recent study that said only 49% of students in all of Hays County show up to kindergarten kinder ready. And so I think, like some of my colleagues have already said, whatever steps the district can take to ensure that more students are entering kindergarten, first grade ready to learn, the better.
Anyone else? Oh, no, I was just, Ms. Hanson?
I thought we as a board had agreed not to nitpick and call out each other and say ugly things, that we were going to work together. And I feel like your comments went against that, Mr. Arredondo.
When I feel like when trustees say we have to do something, what's going to happen, essentially like almost giving this like vague threat that our kids are at risk if a colleague votes against a motion later on in the agenda.
That way.
Well, you choose to interpret my comment as ugly, so.
Okay, that's enough.
Well, we agreed as a board to try to get along and not do this nitpicking.
Anything else, Mr. Wesson?
No.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the TASB Board Policy Update 110.
Good evening, Ms. Griffith, Board of Trustees. My name is Willie Watson, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. This evening we have your policy board update 110. This is the latest policy update from TASB. There's 11 policies that's in this packet. Only one is for local consideration. The other 10 are legal, which means there's not any discretion on those. Those are items that the state mandates us to be in our policy because of state rules, lawsuits, state legislation, federal legislation as well. So the one that's local policy has to do with update with our local elections. So it updates our local election policy dealing with just updating with the years for the elections, the board of officers, and of course our court order that the district is under is also in that local update. This is our first reading for this evening. So if you have any questions on that, please let me or any of the committee the board, the policy committee know. And then in June, we're looking for approval of this policy. Yes.
Just briefly. Recommended revisions at BBB local, and reading from page 48, reflect the election information provided by your district and include the district's election decisions allowed by law. I just want to, did we seek out an election policy update?
No, this is a policy that, no, the TASB, as part of their review of our whole entire policy, this area was under review, and they realized our BBB local policy was needed to be updated. It had like our election sequence back in early 2000s, and so all that needed to be updated and refreshed, and as well as just some information regarding the terms in the election cycle as well.
So this is something that came to all TASB districts?
That's
not
correct,
just San
statewide.
Marcos? Yes?
Statewide.
Okay.
And going through some of this, I noticed some of the items in here are not in our board procedures, so I guess we'll have to go back through our board procedures to update anything that is different from what we had before.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know this is going to come back and we're going to vote on it again, but I'll use this opportunity to voice as an individual trustee that I do not feel the district should continue to be bound under the consent decree that we entered before because of the Supreme Court's ruling with regard to the Voting Rights Act and how it's applied to districts such as ours. And I would be open to renegotiating the terms of that with all of the parties that were privy to that suit, to move elections from May to November and to also put in place some term limits. That's not on our agenda tonight, but I'll voice that for everyone to know that that is where I am individually.
Ms. Villapando?
Mr. Watson, you mentioned that you're going to bring it back in June. That means we only have 2 hearings?
2 readings, she's
This
asking.
falls 2 readings?
In June for the approval, so this is the first reading. I mean, if you need a second reading or second conversation, that can occur as well. I mean, it's our typical practice is to have a first reading, and then for the next board meeting, have the approval. And in between then, if you had some questions, you can let us know. We can answer them for you, or maybe tweak the policy if necessary.
To yes, research it and find out more about it, and in the meantime, if I have questions, we're already going to be up for approval.
Okay, we can delay the approval, Ms. Cantu, if that's what the board chooses. Not a problem at all.
That, and we can also take up some of it in agenda prep. If there's time during the agenda prep, anybody that has comments and questions, that we can do this. But you're saying it's coming from TASB, and that is there any part that's negotiable in here?
No, yes, there are some portions of it that are negotiable, but these are some of the items that regarding our elections, which are fairly concrete in terms of the order and the timing and things of that nature, you know. Some things like Mr. McLaughlin just mentioned, like the court order, that's a bigger item to undertake, but that's something that the board could work towards if they choose.
Okay, Ms. Halsey?
Yeah, I would very much like to get an opinion from our legal counsel on what we could do about moving the elections, what our options are, what the timing would be, what the necessary steps. I'm certainly in favor of moving our elections to the November cycle. I think when we inquired previously, though, about term limits, we were told that term limits are not allowable by the state. So I just think we need clarification on a number of issues. And so if we could have an open session about that with legal counsel, at least to put it to staff to go back and provide research to us, I think that would be a great community conversation.
Ms. Griffith is going to write all this down, and then we'll take it up with legal counsel. Ms. Costilla?
Well, since we're looking at all these things, I think that, remember having a discussion with Mr. Rios, who did the different districts. And I think he mentioned that maybe we should be talking about 7 districts rather than 5 districts and 2 at large. If we're gonna have a discussion about everything, let's just have a discussion about everything else. If we wanna go into, and I'd like to have Mr. Rios come and give us his feedback on the fact that looking at the population-wise, that if, you know, it might be a good idea for us to have a discussion regarding going into full 7 districts and not just having just 5 districts and 2 at large.
Okay.
Mr. Arredondo?
Yes, I guess just as, thank you, Ms. Cantu, as staff is taking notes, I am too open to and willing to have a conversation in regards to what processes and procedures need to take place for moving of our elections to the November general election date. And I'd like to also hear from our legal counsel if, because of our agreement with the parties that establish single-member districts, if that holds more than, I guess, what state law is, because if that is the case, then I would assume that if we renegotiated the terms of that agreement, then possibly a part of that would be moving those elections to November if we're bound by that court order to be in compliance with whatever the parties agree to. But again, a lot of what ifs, a lot of, you know, scenarios there. But again, I think, you know, you look at our turnout in our last May election, although I am a supporter of the results of those elections, I think we need to find ways to increase participation in our elections, and I think moving this to November would definitely increase participation, and who doesn't want more participation in democracy?
Madam President, as far as just scheduling, I think if this was split up to the election changes and all other changes, I would be comfortable making the all other changes at the next meeting and take up election changes in a more robust way after we've gotten legal counsel, after we've explored whether we have the option to renegotiate that consent decree and other things that, if we're gonna deal with elections, I'd rather deal with it in a wholesale way.
And he has said we can take longer than 2 readings.
No, that is
We
correct.
can go to a 3rd reading, because if there's going to be that many changes, then we need to have a little longer time. So it may not be in the June that we can approve it. We may have to go to July or August even, so that everyone has a time to have some input into this. Yes, Mr. Arredondo?
I guess just for clarification then, is there a way that when this policy is brought back to us at a later meeting, we can remove all updates regarding elections until that more robust conversation takes place? So that way we can have the conversation on the TASB policy update minus
The election.
elections, which are a pending conversation.
Can it be split that way?
It can be. The current policy that's in effect will stay in effect. It's just outdated.
Okay, yes, but just so whenever the spring comes back to us, it doesn't have a huge section of updated election policies and procedures that we'd essentially be voting on to update, but then having an ongoing conversation to possibly change.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, it's, okay, let me find that.
The next item is the board member continuing education report.
For the annual report on the board members, whether they're in compliance or not with their training, all board members are in compliance. Miguel Arredondo, myself, Lupe Costilla, Ann Halsey, Kathy Hansen, John McLaughlin, and Margie Villalpando. Based on the records kept by Georgianne Logue, we are all in compliance. Now we move on to the approval of consent agenda items.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Villalpando seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Was that 7?
It was.
Okay, 7-0. Items for action.
I'll make a motion that we table item 12A.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5. You did not vote, Ms. Costilla. Okay, so it's 5-2. All
Yeah.
opposed?
Were you supposed to ask us to
Yes.
vote?
All opposed, 2. Okay. Consideration and approval for SMCISD administration to develop local graduation requirements for students who entered grade 9 before 2011 and 2012.
Yes, our executive director, Mr. James Barton, will address that item.
Good evening, Board President, Can 2, members of the board, James Barton, Executive Director for Secondary. This item originated in the last legislature where TEA was directed to come up with alternate graduation requirements for any student who was not able to graduate because they did not pass the tax test. And of course, the tax test is the assessment system that preceded STAR. Those students we have up to this point still had some of those students come back to test with us at each testing session. And we know that there are some students in our community who completed their graduation requirements, but were not able to pass one of those tests. In April, TEA published the rule, and in May, it became official. The rule specified a series of criteria, alternate criteria, by which a student could receive a diploma. They are demonstrating college readiness on a standardized exam, earning a GED, serving in the military, or earning an industry-based certification. For students who do not meet one of those criteria, the TEA provided for the school board to allow the district to develop a local criteria, which would allow a student to demonstrate proficiency. And then once they published that rule, TASB gave us some language, and I included that in your board agenda item, and it's our intention to be faithful to that. And so that is our agenda item, to allow us to develop a local criteria for demonstrating proficiency for these students.
Ms. Hanson?
I move that we approve the development of local graduation requirements for students who entered grade 9 before 2011-12.
I'll
Do I-
second the motion.
Ms. Yapando seconds. Any discussion?
Yes. I continue to be bothered by the fact that this requirement removes the necessary rigor from a graduation. We failed these kids if they're still here and they can't pass that very straightforward test after this many efforts and after taking all of their courses. And if we were reteaching or working with or helping them with those deficits as a part of the plan, I'd be for it. But instead, we're putting them in these committees, and nobody's not passed one of these committees, at least from the information I've been provided. 100% success rate. You show up, 100% successful. So that's not the message I think we need to send to kids who are in school or kids who have deficits from when they were in school. We need to help them reach higher, and so I'm opposed to this proposal.
Any other questions, any comments?
I have a question for Mr. McLaughlin. I wondered if there was some amendment that you might make to it that would make it more suitable to you.
Well, I guess there's two options. Either the committees could be more rigorous or show a track record of being so, because we've used these committees in the past, but that would take time, I guess.
But is there a standard, is there a standard that we could adopt that would sort of focus that?
Well, I think it would be each individual student is failing some portion, probably not all, of this test. They have some defined deficit. And so this doesn't address the defined deficit in a reteach, relearn, help way. It just says, well, whatever, here's a diploma. So I don't want to get in the business of telling the professionals how we would cover those deficits, but I do want to ask more of them and ask that some effort be made towards that.
So I guess my sense is that the students that have, this is from several years back, right? And so students that are returning, attempting to get their diploma still understand the importance of completion. And so that's showing a sense of perseverance that I appreciate. And I do expect that the committee is diligent and rigorous in that assessment, even if there isn't the fail that would, maybe demonstrate that more clearly. But I also understand your perspective, and I'm torn on it. And I hate to penalize further students that have worked to try to receive that.
Well, they can also get a diploma through a certification, and we have the capacity to handle that.
Maybe that's a conversation we should entertain, that we should do a GED program instead of this.
Right.
I don't know why is that not something that's come up through TA? What's the conversation there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the full question.
If instead of having a committee, we asked students to complete the GED?
If they completed one of the criteria specified by TEA, they qualify and they'll be awarded a diploma. So what's up for approval is whether you direct the district to implement a procedure by which a student can demonstrate proficiency. And it's a well-taken point, and the data we gathered for you is conclusive that if a student shows up and continues to persevere with an IGC, we do work with them to completion. But that's not a rubber stamp. We come together as a committee and say, how can we demonstrate, given your experience and given what you know about this, how can we demonstrate it? And they go to work. And if it's not good enough, when they come back, we say, no, that doesn't demonstrate. Now we need to go back to work. And that committee meets repeatedly until a student is able to demonstrate proficiency. And I know there are students who do struggle with some of the standardized tests, and some of those things are, that's a difficulty for them. But they are capable of learning, and they have demonstrated that.
Quick follow-up so I can make sure I understand that correctly. So the CTE certification, those 4 things you outlined that would entitle them to a diploma, these kids, do these kids, have they mastered or completed one of those 4 criteria, or these are children who have not?
These are children who have not.
Not any of those 4.
So TEA didn't leave us any discretion with those 4. TEA says if they have a GED and they come back and say, you are my district where I was last attending, we are to award them a diploma.
Right.
What they did give us discretion is, with your permission, is to implement a system, or a protocol, where students could demonstrate proficiency.
In
and
another
that is a more individualized standard, and that is harder to nail down. Yes, sir.
That's what you wanted.
They've
Well,
already
no,
gone and
they have
gotten a
to make
GED.
I would
They've
rather
already gone.
already, this doesn't reach them. This is the ones who didn't get the GED, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, this is for kids who didn't get a GED, didn't have military, didn't get a certification, didn't do anything he just outlined. Even having done none of that, we'll still give it to you, you know, and I think that changes the motivation for the kids. Why would they go through those more rigorous processes if they could just, you know, skip around that requirement?
Well, I don't know that they knew this was coming. This is an opportunity. They've been coming back to test with us repeatedly for the opportunity to pass the test. So this is not something that they've avoided any of those other opportunities for the chance at this.
And if they pass if they meet one of those 4 criteria, even though they fail the tax, they're still all right.
Yes, sir.
I'm comfortable with that.
Mr. Arredondo?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cantu. I guess as a follow-up to this conversation, I too am hesitant on this. I think this is a symptom of TEA and kind of how we administer and, you know, confer diplomas at a high school level statewide. But I'm of the same mindset that I'm nervous when you look at our success rate of these committees. And, you know, since I don't sit in every one of those committees, I don't know the dialogues or conversations that take place. But I would much rather see us expend general funds to essentially tutor or support these students to get a GED versus some type of individualized graduation plan. If that was something that was prescribed by TEA as that makes them eligible for this diploma, I would much rather us have staff or resources allocated to help them meet one of those 4 already established routes to a diploma set by TEA versus a localized policy. Because I think it muddies already a difficult situation of, you know, student A versus student B versus student C. I mean, that's 3 different routes to a graduation plan if we're all a part of that committee versus here's 4 statewide standards that have been set by TEA. So I don't think we're going to flesh that out tonight, but I will be voting against the approval of this policy tonight.
Ms. Hanson?
Is that tax test still available to these students?
No, ma'am. TEA no longer administers the tax test.
That's why they've recommended this.
That's why you have to go this process.
Yes,
Because there's no more tax.
That's why they had to implement
Thank
the law.
you.
Okay, just as I need a clarification though, but there are 4 processes in place already to meet this standard, minus whatever our local standard is.
Yes, sir.
There's 4 set by TEA, 4 routes to get this diploma under this new law for these students.
Yes, sir.
This would be a 5th option specifically set by San Marcos CISD to confer these diplomas to these students.
It does provide for us to establish a local criteria to demonstrate proficiency, and that's what you would give us permission to do.
So there are 4 routes already. Okay.
Ms. Halsey?
And I just wanted to clarify that if we approve this, then the time limit is only through September 1st of 2019, correct? Okay.
So it's a limited time that they have to make this up. Are we ready to call for the question?
Yes.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 2. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Consider appointment of 2 board members to the Community Partnership.
On page 124 of your packet, you will find a consideration for a partnership with the Hayes County. This would be the city, the county, and SMCISD, and I believe they're possibly trying to get in Texas State with that as well. And they are asking that we nominate 2 members of our board to sit on this collaboration committee.
Ms. Halsey?
I'd like to move that we appoint President Clem Cantu and Vice President John McLaughlin as the 2 representatives of the board to serve on the community partnership.
Do I hear a second?
For purposes of discussion, I will second.
I have a second for Mr. Redondo. Discussion?
I guess I have a
We
question.
can't just nominate and then decide who?
I have a question on the motion and the second.
She has a question. He has a question. Can we take the question first?
Question 2.
Are both nominees willing to serve on the committee?
Yes.
Okay. That's my only question.
Ms. Hanson?
I thought we were just nominating people. I didn't know we were actually, because I had my hand up to nominate.
She had it up first, from what I saw. I turned this way.
So,
We have a,
What she did is nominate people?
no,
What am I missing?
there was second, so it's a motion.
I move to appoint following the recommendation in the items for action that said, consider appointment of 2 SMCID board.
are we ready to call for the vote, or do we have more discussion?
Well, I wanted to nominate Lupe Costilla.
Okay. We already have a motion on the floor. So what is the predicament here?
We can vote on the motion on the floor.
Let's vote on the motion on the floor, and if
down.
it doesn't pass, then we'll try another motion.
Excuse me, Madam President, I will decline the nomination. Thank you, Ms. Hanson. So we can go forward and not spend all night here and just go forward, do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay.
We still need to
All-
set the vote.
I know. All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0. Consider of award a bid proposal for new elementary school.
Yes, our Director of Purchasing, Mrs. Cindy Casper, is going to address this item.
This is exciting. So the trustees approved the utilization of competitive seal proposal for the purchase of elementary number 7. And we received proposals in the purchasing office at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, May 8th. We had a 2-step opening. We received the pricing on Tuesday, and Wednesday we received the list of subcontractors and things like that. So it was actually Thursday morning that the committee sat down, and that was Mr. Jay Wesson, Coleman Uresti, Karen Griffith, Michael Cardona, and myself. And we graded the proposals that we received, and you'll see the grading sheet. It's included in your packet.
Page 127.
So tonight, we're here to recommend that we award the contract to Joris Construction.
No.
Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry, Bartlett Cock. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Kevin. To Bartlett Cock, and you'll see. I'm sorry.
You said it was going to be exciting.
See?
Just woke them up.
Yeah. He's thinking I've been sitting here all night long.
Coleman's having a heart attack.
Because they thought they were going to get a bid. They thought they were
I'm
going to.
sorry.
All right.
Scratch that. Bartlett Cock. We are going to, their base bid with the alternates, and we are recommending the alternates, is $23,446,000. We'll be taking alternate 4A, 4B, and 4C will not be taken. You'll notice, and I'm sorry that I've made that flub, but you'll notice that Joris was a little bit lower than Bartlett
BC
Cock,
and
but in our grading, there were some things they didn't include that we asked for, so we had to grade accordingly.
Explain it. Would you like me to explain?
I see, it's a no bid all the way across.
Flat, like
Well, do you want us to explain the item? Why there's some?
Ms.
there are no-
Hanson?
I move that we approve Bartlett Clock as the construction, for the construction contract for our new elementary.
I'll second.
Mr. Arredondo seconds. Any discussion?
I just had one question. Will you clarify again, Mrs. Casparis, we're taking some of the alternates but not all, or is it the ones that weren't bid on that we're excluding from?
Right,
Essentially
correct.
saying we're not doing this because they
The ones that were
weren't
not bid on are excluded.
Okay.
but we're
Ones that
gonna
say no
accept
bid
all the
on.
But
rest.
all the ones that have an amount are inclusive of Trustee Hanson's motion?
Correct.
Okay.
And just for the record, for A, B, C, and D, we're all just different items. They're all the same one, but just different manufacturers. So at this point in time, we're recommending to take 4A. So if you look at it, that's why it's for A, B, C, and D. They're all just different manufacturers
I see.
for that one item, but we want item A for this.
Right.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, I have, it looks like in the scoring sheet, because they weren't the low bid, right? So in the scoring sheet, it looks like two factors were in Joris's favor. The proposed contract amount, because it was slightly lower, and the proposed construction contract time. Does that mean they promised a quicker delivery?
It was a little bit quicker. If you'll look up, the days to complete is on the top thing, 406. I think, well, actually, George was 381.
Okay. And when does that clock start ticking?
When we issue a notice to proceed, so we'll do the contract. Once we get the contract ready and permits, and Mr. Wesson, we've already applied for some permits? Yes. Once we get the permits and we can hand them the permits, they'll get the notice to proceed and the clock will start.
Because 406 is pretty tight to, you know, like an August 1 delivery, which I presume we need, you know, at some period in advance of the first day of school. That makes me a bit uncomfortable. But it looks like the areas that they scored higher in, most specifically, there's this other factors.
Other factors are claims and suits and quality control. When we ask in our request for proposal for a contractor to list any lawsuits that they have pending with subs, for anything, we expect to see some lawsuits listed. I mean, there's not a contractor out there that hasn't been involved, not that it's bad, but Bartlett listed theirs, and we had some that left it blank, you know, like, yes, we've been in business for 20 years, and of course, we've had lawsuits, but none pending right now, or whatever they put. And we asked for a list of them. We want to see them.
For the last 10 years.
For the last 10 years.
And so Joris's was blank.
No, yeah, Joris's was blank. Yes.
Did you follow up and find out if they had omitted anything, or?
No, they did call and they did offer to send something in, but that's the point of a competitive bid. I mean.
So they did acknowledge that something was left off?
No, they acknowledged they didn't send it.
They excluded it.
They excluded it because they just didn't think they needed to, I guess.
Okay.
They weren't the only ones that excluded
So it wasn't a complete bid.
Wasn't a complete bid.
So you can't get full points.
I get it. Any other questions?
I guess a question and a clarifying statement. So I see now where there's like the ampersand at the bottom of this page where it says, I think there were several contractors on this list that did not submit that supplemental information. I guess my other question, because I see kind of the representatives from Bartlett Cock out there kind of doing something. So I guess my question though is, from this timeline of construction of 381 versus 406, if we like map that backwards, like what is the date? You said kind of what needs to happen for construction to start, but like what is that date? Like so that we all know in relation to 381, 406, 407, or even, Cadence McShane said it was going to take them 420 days. Like, what does that timeline look like, especially as Cindy, who opens the new school with furnishings, what does that look like? Yeah.
Our plan is to
Weekend.
get site work begun by June the 11th. If that's the case, I believe 406 was what they put. I think that ends us right there in late July 20th, I believe, which would give us time to get the school open.
Is there a penalty provision for late delivery?
We did not put any liquidated damages into the contract.
But we could
into
still
the
add it,
proposed
right?
contract. Ma'am?
Liquidated damages.
They're hard to press.
I have used them before. They are very, very hard to collect. So what I worry about when doing a contract like this is if I say it's $1,000 a day for every day over your allotted time, are they padding that in case they're, and so our attorney and I had a long conversation about this not too long ago. They're so hard to get paid. Someone has to be tracking, like, was there enough rain that they could have worked that day? Or what was the rain, 0.23? What were they doing at that time? It's really hard to track, so we don't do liquidated damages in most cases.
And you have to prove that the district is harmed.
Any other questions or comments? Was he going to tell us?
Bartok reminded me that in their qualifications, they did put that was, tell me again, Kevin.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Kevin Bird, Vice President of Bartlett Cock. I wanted to say we clarified in our proposal the 403 days is to final completion. We'll have substantial completion 30 days prior to that. We're school builders. We know you need to have the summer to move in, so we're going to do our part to make the school ready to do that. So that last 30 days for us would be completing punch list. As you're moving into the school, it'll look complete. It's just kind of putting the final polishing touches on it.
Are we ready to vote? Or we still have more questions or comments or questions? Are we ready to vote? We're good? All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mr. McLaughlin, you did not vote. All opposed? 6-1.
Thank you.
Approval for.
Wait a minute, I'm going to ask the board on the next item, which is the approval of the GMP for the Hernandez re-roofing. Can we table that until the next meeting? There's some items that we should have done in this, and so we want to take care of that before we bring it back to you on.
Motion to table.
I'll make a motion that we table 7E.
I second.
And Ms. Halsey seconds. Discussion? All in favor? 7, 0. Consider approval of changes to policy CDA local.
Yes, on page 131 of your packet, this is the second reading. The only change of this is to change the maximum allowable maturity date for an individual investment owned by the district, not to exceed 2 years from the time of purchase.
Question, Ms. Hanson?
I move that we approve changes to policy CDA local.
I'll second.
Mr. McLaughlin seconds. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. McLaughlin to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Arredondo. All in favor? 7-0. Did you vote, Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Is this? Oh, this is for